Eitzen Show. I'm Melinda. Today, we are so fortunate to have with us a fabulous life coach and my aunt, Molly Behannon.
Hi.
Welcome, Molly.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here.
Me too.
So, I know you have got wellness on your shirt.
I do.
Tell everyone a little bit about your background.
Okay, well, I think let's talk about the mental health background.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I mean.
So I became an elementary school counselor, and back when we were doing desegregation, went into some of the lower socioeconomic, schools in Dallas, and I wanted to work with elementary students. Probably more so when they said, "Do you want to do high school counseling or elementary?" I chose elementary because I wanted to do preventive counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And so I began that journey. And then I was asked to design and implement the first developmental guidance program in the ISD back
Wow.
in the 70s, actually. So that kind of began my journey with mental health. From there, at some point, I decided to go into private practice and became a therapist and opened Park Cities Counseling Center. And that was about a 25-year journey. In that period of time, I also did a lot of counseling and consultation with school counselors. So I began to focus on the wellness of the counselor.
Oh, yes, that's important.
And that kind of, sped me along. And then, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, I decided to transition into life coaching. Partially because I wanted just to work with people that knew they had a direction and it was a little easy. I wanted to make mental health easier access for people. And not
Yes.
so formal, like to have to go into the therapist's office. So I say, I'll meet you anywhere, anytime, and let's just talk. And take the stigma of therapy away.
Yeah, we're not getting shrunken.
That is correct. There is no shrinking.
That day is
There's
past.
only growth. So
Well-
I focus on personal growth and wellness specifically became my expertise areas.
And you were doing wellness before it was in fashion.
Yes, I was.
No one knew what you were talking about.
I was considered probably woo-woo a little bit, a little out on the limb, like Shirley MacLaine, if anyone remembers that. But when I was president of the Texas Counseling Association, I was drawn to this concept called wellness, and I went to a national convention, the American Counseling Association, and their keynote address was on wellness. And I sneaked out of a meeting I had to be in and ran in there. and I just knew this is where I want to put my time, my energy. And so the year I was president, I did my theme was winning with wellness.
Oh, that's great.
And this was in the 90s probably. And the wellness was, again, helping school counselors understand what wellness really is and practice it themselves so they become better role models for their clientele, their students, and their parents, and to begin to teach that. So that's kind of where it started.
And you have finally written a book
Yes.
based on all your years of doing this. Okay, so I have the book here.
Uh-huh. Very, very excited.
Gently
about
Down the Stream by Molly Behannon. It's beautiful. I've read it. And it has lessons. We have a theme, a nature theme, right?
No, not exactly.
Let's
So
have
let
the picture.
Yeah. Let me just kind of
Show the picture.
tell you the concept of the book, okay?
That's a beautiful picture.
Yeah, this is
from it.
so
Thank you, Trey.
going back to when I was, working with counselors. I would do a lot of workshops.
Okay.
That's another part of my expertise. I was a ropes course trainer, so I would incorporate experiential learning in my workshops and presentations on wellness. And that I was in El Paso, and I had about 100 school counselors in a room, and I was doing this activity, which was, just a mixer, an energy thing. It's called people to people, and you touch body like hand to hand, shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow, etc. And they're moving around the room, changing partners. And at some point, I just said bottom of foot to bottom of foot, and they all went, "How do we do that?" And they all sat down on the floor, and put their feet together. And I said, "Oh, since y'all are sitting there, let's do a physical thing and stretch." So I had them take each other's hands, kind of like you're doing this, and they were doing this. Okay. So and this was totally random, and this is why I'm going to tell this, because it's in the beginning of the book that I tell why I did this book. So they look like they're rowing a boat. So I said, "Okay, let's start singing." So we did. So we did row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. And as we did that, I looked at them. I said, "You notice in that little song, it doesn't say row like heck upstream." It's gently down the stream. And so they were sitting on the floor, and I said, "Let's talk about that. What keeps your all's boats from going gently down the stream?" And I was talking more about their work environment, because it's very stressful as a school counselor when you have 1,200 kids and you're by yourself. And so they started giving me all the reasons that their boat didn't go gently down the stream. And it was everything from there's a hole in my boat, to I have too many people in the boat, to I'm trying to beat somebody else's boat, to I don't even know where my boat's going. And so the list began. And so as I also, at the end of every workshop, people would always come up to me and say, "Do you have a book that reminds us of this?" So 20 years later, I finally said, "Yeah, I now have a book that reminds you of this." So that is why the title is Gently Down the Stream, and it's basically 10 rowing tips to help you have a healthy, balanced, more peaceful journey. And these are the kind of the top 10 things that, as a mental health professional, I have determined are pretty much the bottom line. If we do these things, we're going to be in good shape. And it does focus on wellness and what that is, and the balance in our lives.
Okay, so you and I are saying wellness and balance, and we know what we think we mean, but some people listening may not know. So what does that mean?
Thank you for that question. If I had a group of people here right now in the audience, if I say, what is wellness, what's the first thing that comes into your mind?
Physical, probably.
That is usually the answer. And so, and physical is one part of it. So this is when I want to take that moment to help explain what wellness truly is. And we actually, in the Texas Counseling Association, have a definition that we use that I promoted and now is used as this is what it means. Basically, it's understanding that everything you think, everything you feel, everything you do, and everything you believe has an impact on your overall well-being. So there's 4 aspects. We call it dimensions or aspects. You have a physical dimension, you have an emotional, you have a spiritual, and you have an intellectual. And then understanding what those are, I can kind of briefly tell you that if that's it. So physical is rather obvious, but not totally. So physical takes on, of course, what you eat, how you move, but it's also about taking care of your body, prevention, going to the dentist, doing things. Which some people take better care of their car than they do their bodies. The car rattles, let's get it fixed. The body rattles, we go, I don't want to deal with that.
Yes.
So it's being in your body and listening to your body and understanding your body. And things like, I don't know, putting on your seatbelt. Okay? Mm-hmm. All right, that's the physical aspect. The intellectual aspect really has to do with our thoughts, our belief systems. So everything that goes on, it's not about being smart. It's about using our mind, in a rational way and taking care. But it's also broadening your mind, learning new things, going to a workshop, learning new cultural things.
Would it
keeping your mind alive.
Would it include, like you hear you should do crossword puzzle to help not have Alzheimer's? Would that fall into that, or is that more the physical? Maybe both.
It can be both, but I think I think it's keeping your mind active. Which one have I done? Emotional
so you need
aspect.
emotional and spiritual.
Emotional, in my opinion, is probably the most important and the least paid attention to. As a therapist, I would say the most difficult thing is to get people to process their feelings effectively. But it's our emotional is listening to our feelings, having a way to talk about them, understanding them. I always tell people, if you want to know what's true for you, go to how you feel about it, not how you think about it.
I think historically we thought there were like 3 emotions, maybe 2, happy, sad. And then one benefit of the emoji world is if you look at all the emojis on your phone, it shows you there's more than 2 emotions.
That's right. I used to have a chart on my coffee table at the office, and people say, I don't know how I feel. I said, well, here. And there's like 100 on there, and they're little pictures of the feeling. I said,
emojis before emojis were cool.
Exactly right. I said, you look angry. And they go, oh, well, I probably am. So again, your body reflects your emotional self too. One of the recommendations I would have for a lot of my clients who had trouble getting out of their head was to do something like massage therapy, or that's physical. It takes them totally out of their head.
Dancing is good.
Dancing is great
because you have to think about the steps, so you can't think about your worries.
There is a physical aspect, absolutely. The last aspect is, and I'm kind of simplifying these, but the last aspect is the spiritual aspect. And this one, it doesn't, I have to be very specific with this one. It doesn't have to do with religion. It can. But our physical aspect is more who we are, who we want to be, more your value system. What do I believe in? What matters? How do I want to be as a person? Having compassion for others as well as yourself, and honoring those things. So when you take those 4 components, it's called holistic, basically, and most people have heard that. So when a client comes in with me, I immediately go to what's missing, and I look at those 4 quadrants, and I have that chart in my, when I do this, it's because I do this thing with 4 quadrants and a pie. And okay, you need to be working more on the emotional aspect. Or where's the balance? It's really about balance. So
it's easy to get out of balance.
Yes, it is. So you have those 4 components, and if you just take the time to see that you're bringing all of those into your world, you will stay balanced, and it helps us stay healthy. Because the negative energy is what affects us physically and causes depression. And, well, go back to feelings. Emotions held in are going to cause either blow up and have panic and anxiety attack because it's accumulation of all the feelings not dealt with, or you're going to implode and be depressed. And the way out's going to be to deal with the feelings, okay? So when I look at a person that's, obviously, if they come into the therapy, they probably have a lot of emotional stuff going on. So we need to make sure the other aspects are being looked at every day, because they're caught up. If it's a divorce, there's a lot going on. So we sit down and say, what are you doing for yourself every day? How are you dealing with yourself emotionally, physically, intellectually, and spiritually? So it helps not be all over the place over here, and helps us come back into balance so we can manage our lives better.
Sometimes when people come to me, they're so upset that I just try to take them back to basics and say, are you sleeping?
Correct.
Are you eating? Are you breathing? I'm watching you not breathe. You're holding your breath,
Exactly. That's right. The body will totally show what's going on with you. Right?
And get back to basics, because we can't get from our emotional state into maybe our business brain. For my purpose, sometimes I need them to be able to do that if their basics aren't taken care of,
That's right. The other is, you don't want to add anything to your plate It's going to cause more emotional stuff. So we can go on a simpler. If you're in, let's say, getting your doctorate, you're going to be very much in the intellectual field. You don't need any more of that. Don't learn anything else. Don't read one more book. Get over here and row your boat.
Go take a dance lesson.
Go to nature. Nature in the yes, there's a lot of nature in the book because I think it is the best balancer for me personally.
Me too.
When I'm out of balance, I go to the woods, and that just But I help people figure out where that is, and you can do it in your backyard. You don't have to go to the woods. So.
I have a beautiful backyard and front yard. I love nature, and as you know, I go to Broken Bow a lot.
Yep.
And I physically feel better. Like the minute I drive into the piney woods.
Don't you? You feel the whole...
I physically feel myself. And I told my husband, maybe the trees are giving off more oxygen. Like maybe it's really a physical science.
There's there's serenity in nature. It became church for me on some level because it's just simple, predictable, positive energy out there in the woods most of the time.
Well, and it's such, if you are religious, which I am, it's such a gift from God.
Exactly.
And
Serenity,
to see nature, how do you think all that just happened by magic? You know what I mean? So for me, it's a spiritual experience to say, oh my gosh, look at all the different types of trees, all the different types of flowers, all the different types of birds.
Which is perfect. So when you need your spiritual aspect, you can go to the woods.
Yes.
Not just a church. I mean, that's why I tell
Yes.
people you don't have to be. It's being mindful of what's out of balance and knowing, some of the steps to take, and that's kind of where the book comes in. So when I did this, the other thing, having been a mental health professional for most of my adult life, I wanted it to be very simple because that's the other thing. It's, what most people say, when you're sitting there having panic and anxiety and I'm working with you, I want to give you something that you can go home and have relief right then and there.
Yes.
And there's some just basic things that can be done. One you just said, breathe. Go home, sit down, take some breaths, etc. So each rowing tip addresses those particular things.
Let's talk about the photography in the book.
Okay.
It's so beautiful. Oh, how did that come about?
Well, when I decided to do this book, after resisting, I had two folks that helped me, both of whom had been clients of mine years ago. One when she was in her 20s, came back when she's in her 30s, and now she's in her 50s, and she helped me really get the book together. Her name is Stephanie. Barbara Davidson is a client of mine, a friend actually, who is a Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist, and I love her work. And I told Stephanie, I said, I really want Barbara to do the pictures in this book, but I don't know if she will. But she said, of course I will, but I just want to do it on a personal level, not a professional level. And I said, great. So she had the rowing tips, and she went to a state park. She lives in California, so she went to a national park and spent the weekend taking all these photographs, and she picked each one of these pictures represented her, I guess, what she felt when she read the rowing tip. That picture matched for her the emotional connection in nature.
Oh, how special.
I know. It just, and it was very touching for her to want to do that.
Yes.
So, for me. So that's the picture on the front she did, and all the rest.
That is a great.
Yeah. And she understands wellness and the concept. That was the other, for me, kind of heartwarming, that she, after all the years since we've worked together, she applies those concepts today. And so it's very important for us all. Rowing tip number 1 is to take care of your boat. So the very first chapter in the book talks about wellness, what it is, that if you don't take care of this, because a lot of people feel guilty if they put themselves first or take care of that, but that's the key. The key to wellness, by the way, is also foundation of wellness is self-responsibility and self-love, and understanding what those mean. So there's a whole piece on that in there as well.
So what you talked about is sometimes people feel bad to take care of themselves. I think of it kind of like the airplane where they say put the oxygen mask on
Absolutely.
yourself first.
Absolutely.
We're no good to anyone else if we can't, if we're not in a good enough place. So we do need to take care of ourselves.
The rest didn't. I mean, that's what's number one. If you ain't in good shape, then the rest doesn't matter, right? And so, but it's also, I spend a lot of time helping people understand what self-love means. And so even on a spiritual level, each of us, everybody, is a divine creation, everything. So I look at him, I said, so help me understand how you're going to take care of everyone else, but not your divine self. I think that's a little not so good, right? And they'll go, no, you're right. So, but you got to understand that. What does that mean? And it goes back to loving yourself. Well, if you want to quote Bible stuff, I mean, you know, I use everybody's, whatever their religious beliefs are. It says love thy neighbor as thyself. It doesn't say it an opposite, you know.
Right.
But we as a culture are very good at guilting people for taking care of themselves, because that requires setting boundaries, saying no sometimes, getting some people off your boat that aren't good for you. And those are hard decisions. Mm-hmm. But then you have to ask, why am I doing this to myself when it's making me sick or mentally ill? And that's understanding the balance of that.
And you don't have to wait to go to a life coach or a counselor or a therapist until you're in a crisis, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's why I wanted prevention.
Yes.
These are life skills, right? It's not
and we're
major
not
therapy.
Just born knowing what to do. We have to sometimes get a little education. Mm-hmm. So,
or good role modeling. You know,
yes.
If we grow up with someone that operates from a wellness perspective, we don't have a problem with it. So that's the other reason I want people like yourself to role model what you know works. Mm-hmm. You know, and then kids go, "Oh, you did it. I guess I can do it." Right.
I always think about with my own children who are now adults, I always wanted to provide them with tools. And one tool would be, hey, there's times when it's helpful to get some life coaching, you know, and you don't have to wait until you're in a crisis to do that. I think we have less of a stigma now about going to counseling than we used to.
We do.
But there's probably still some people who say, oh, you don't go share your dirty laundry with someone.
Oh, and we also have that. And I was guilty of this when I went to graduate school. I probably wouldn't have done therapy if I hadn't learned how to be one, because I was one of those, I can do it myself. Right? And we can't. You know, we need some people with us. And that's why in the mental health world, I ask the counselors, who's there for you? We're kind of like parents, same deal. You're pulling people upstairs all day long. A school teacher, any person that's, you know, working with people all day. Who's on your team and who's helping you? And that's when I got my own massage therapist, my own counselor, you know, my own life coach, because I need not just family systems, they're good too, but, you know, sometimes they're the ones that can guilt us or tell us to get over it, you know. So that's why you want the objective party in your life from time to time.
And there's something about just getting it out of your head. Like if you are dealing with something difficult or you're stressed and it's whirling around in your brain, there's something about telling it to an objective person it's not your mom, it's not your sister, it's not someone who has their own agenda that you have to worry about them.
Correct.
It's an objective person that you are paying that doesn't care. I mean, I don't mean that, you know what I mean, but it doesn't affect their life.
No.
They just are there to help you. You can say it freely to that person, and then just saying it, getting it out of your brain.
Absolutely.
There's something miraculous about that.
And they'll even say it. All my clients to this day go, I just need to talk. And then they say, isn't that weird when I say it out loud, I don't feel the same way. Yeah, when we keep that stuff up in our head, we're not real rational. And then we start talking about it, we go, I can't believe I even thought that. You know, there's something about hearing your own voice that is very important, and in an emotionally safe environment.
And I wonder if journaling, I know journaling is recommended and popular. I wonder if it's a similar, I've never been a journaler really.
No, it's very healthy.
It's same
It's the
thing,
same deal.
right? It's a
As
way
I tell
to
my
get it
clients,
out.
you just need to get it out. I don't care how you
Yes.
do it. Scream and yell and shout, go
Yes.
punch bags, say what you need to say, or write. There's, you don't have to read it. You don't have to tear it up afterwards.
Yeah.
But I promise you, it's like a pressure cooker. If it doesn't come out, be it up here or down here, it's going to explode. Or be careful. One of my
It will come out
rowing
another
tips,
way.
that is correct. Ulcers, But one of my rowing tips, I was trying to think what I was just going to say there it's about having positive thoughts. So a lot of the work too is being aware of what you're thinking. Are you scaring yourself to death every day with your thoughts, which will create a panic attack? And they go, oh, I'm not even aware of what I'm thinking. And then when I have them doing positive, like, okay, every day you need to say I'm safe and secure, they start noticing the other thoughts that they have all the time. But it's a habit. We're creatures of habit. We've been thinking the same thing. We just aren't aware of it.
Yeah, I've read that
So that's
there's
so that's the other value of talking, because it helps you, realize how much negative thinking you're doing.
yes, and replacing it.
Correct.
I've read that there's even scientific research that if you do a gratitude journal, for example, I have done that type of journaling before, where every day you write down three
It's
things
one of the best.
you're grateful for, and they have to be different than the three others that you wrote down yesterday. So you're not just repeating the same three every day.
You can, because you cannot be depressed and grateful at the same time. It won't happen. So the minute someone's down, I say, why don't you just tell me three things they're feeling good about now? And they'll go, But the minute they do, their energy shifts.
My husband and I did a gratitude journal for a year and a half. It was hysterical. And we had the rule, you can never say the same thing.
Okay.
And the very first, I look back at it and laugh so hard. The very first day I was like, okay, what are you grateful for? And he was like, monkeys.
Well, of course.
Everyone loves a good monkey. But
Well,
it
sense
was,
humors are great.
yes,
That'll
we
laugh.
laugh a lot. But I did think that was a good exercise, and it was fun. I mean, we had fun with it. You could look back and see, look at all the things that there are to be grateful for.
It's a good way to end the day too.
Yes.
So I know Dr. Wayne Dyer, who's one of my mentors, said this so well one time, and this could be a great tip. It's not
Yes.
particularly one of mine, but be careful what you contemplate. So he tells this story. He's a great storyteller. But when he was 18 and joined the Navy, he said, I was walking toward this big old aircraft carrier, and he says, I'm sitting there thinking, how in the world is that floating? It's got airplanes on it and 1,000 people. He says, well, clearly that did not happen by the person who created a boat by contemplating the sinking of things. And they said, just like the Wright brothers did not create the airplane by contemplating the staying on the ground of things. I mean, it's just so great. And this is true, everything that's created starts with a thought. So he says, you might want to really consider what you go to sleep contemplating, because it will manifest. So it's like, what do you want to simmer overnight? So I used to do that one with clients before you go to bed. Think of something you're grateful for the day, or something good that happened this day. Not, oh my God, what I'm going to do tomorrow and all that stuff, because you fall asleep with that.
Oh, that's good.
And then it manifests physically. That's why people have so much stress and backaches and all those things.
Yes. Lisa and I, my law partner, we work with a business coach. And every time we meet with him, the first thing he asks, first he says, is there anything you want to express? So it's kind of what you would call a feeling check. So we get to express that. And he's not a mental health professional. He went to MIT. Like he's a
He's a
business
mind person. Yeah.
He's a math person, really. But he says that. And then he says, what was a success from this week? So we always start with that. And so I'm always looking back at the week and thinking, what went right?
Right, exactly.
So that's positive
Positive energy.
framework, right? So that is helpful. Well, I think that people think nothing about going to the doctor for a physical every year, and they should do that, right? That's part of the balance of all
Prevention.
this.
Exactly.
But nobody thinks, oh, I shouldn't go to the doctor. Nothing's wrong with me, right? And that's where the mental health, that's where people need to have a paradigm shift, is you can go see a life coach or a therapist without having, you're already need to go to the hospital because you're having
That
such
is right. Part of
a
yes,
mental
and
health
I
breakdown.
totally 100%. Thank goodness the world has agreed with this. Back when I started my wellness journey, it was a no-brainer to me, the mind-body connection. I mean, I didn't need to research that. It just seems like, of course, what happens here affects here, vice versa. So when I say holistic, it's kind of like with your business or as I mentioned, the firm before, when I work with companies, what affects the individuals in the company affects the company. What the company's energy is affects the individuals. You can't separate them out. So when all are happy, and just like in a marriage, when one's off, the relationship's off. You know, when both are together and are well, then the relationship is well.
So one thing you have done for us, and I know for others, is team building or helping in a business culture. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think it's the same way working with an individual. I love to work with environments and make them healthier. So what makes a healthy work environment? Positive energy, reinforcing, setting boundaries. You know, it's the same, really the same aspect to me as an individual. So I just help businesses look at what's missing. Is it a safe, emotionally safe place for people? Can I come to you, the boss, and say I'm not happy, or am I afraid to talk? Is there gossip going on? Is all of that stuff? But the more we know each other, the safer the environment. So a lot of my work is to bring people together so they have a trust level with to work within,
And I think
reinforcing them so they feel good about what they do.
well, and the longer that you want to, in a business, you want to keep people a long time, right? If they're good, you want to keep the people. So if we can have an environment that is more pleasant to work in because we're having somebody like you come in, makes sense from a business standpoint.
Well, you can't separate out. What happens in their private life is going to affect their work environment, and vice versa. You know, people just want to ignore that. Well, no, if you're going through a divorce, you're not going to be great at work every day. But that doesn't mean you're not going to do your job. But it helps to know that people are on your side. I remember one time I was asked, there was this book, it's going to be like 100 Successful Women in Texas. And they picked me, and I'm going, okay. This is back when I was in the school business. But the question was, how do you define success? And I remember I said, success for me is creating an environment in which you can be totally who you are. So it comes down to authenticity, because I'm going to be good if you let me be who I am, and vice versa.
That's very powerful. Well, I know as one of the bosses, Lisa and I have the firm, and we have maybe 28 employees. I'm sometimes the last to know that something is going on that isn't good, that there's gossip or some negative interaction between people, because people don't want to complain to the boss always. And I appreciate that.
Well, they're also somewhat intimidated. You are the boss.
Right.
Even if you're not particularly intimidating, there's still that. People
Yes.
aren't that comfortable with running into the boss.
Yes. So at our firm, everyone knows they can call you if they have an issue and just try to resolve it, without having to come to us.
It goes back to what you
sometimes.
said. I did that recently with someone in your firm, and all it took was a conversation. I didn't fix it. And next day she says, oh, much better. That was just really cool. And it was a perfect example of just get it off your chest. And no one judged you, and nobody's going to fire you. And if you tell me tomorrow what you'd like to do about this, think about it. And it helps. And I so appreciate that you do that for your employees.
Yeah, well,
because it's rare. Not every not every company.
Well, I
will
think
do
either
that.
some companies don't know to do it, they don't
No,
think
that's
about
true.
it, or they think it's an expense that they can't afford. But in truth, it's not that expensive, and it will actually help
Oh, the
you.
results the same.
It'll
Yeah.
help your bottom line because people will stay longer, they'll be happier, you'll have less drama, you'll have less turnover. Training someone is expensive. So every time we have turnover, that costs us a lot of money. So if you can keep your good people because you can just invest a little bit
Yep.
at the company level in mental health, that's a good thing. Okay, so what's a tip we can give our listeners of something they could do? They need an action item to
Well, pick
improve
one.
their improve their mental and their wellness, improve their wellness and their balance.
Okay, I sort of meant, the first one I said was take care of your boat, which is
Yes.
good. I would say probably the number one tip besides self-love and self-care is be present in your boat. So, present moment living is one of the healthiest things we can do. And so because I specialize in anxiety and panic, that's one of the tenets, that I operate from. So what happens when a person is anxious is because they're futurizing. Okay. So if you and I sit here and go, oh my God, next week this is going to happen, and what if that happens? And we start the what ifs and the what ifs and the what ifs, the body automatically goes into fear. And I think I'll just go ahead and say this because some people don't remember. We are given this thing when we come to the planet called the autonomic nervous system, which is the fight or flight syndrome. It doesn't distinguish between real threat or not real threat. If you say to yourself, oh my God, everybody's going to hate me because I haven't washed the clothes today, the body hears, oh my God, they're going to hate me. And what if 20 years from now I don't have enough money to retire and I'm going to be under the bridge and so the body, it's like watching a horror movie. It will go into a fight or flight mode.
It gets out of hand.
Just the words what if sets the body like this. So I work with people, get what if, that's another one, get what ifs out of your vocabulary. But, and the flip side is when I think about the past all the time. So you got fear over here of the future, and then you got guilt over here of the past, neither of which are productive in any way, shape, or form and hurt the body. Now, plan for the future as best you can, if with what you know and what you have, but don't live in the future. Past is the same way. Can't fix it. Learn from the past. Change your behavior if you feel guilty. Guilt's purpose is to tell us we're not perfect and it's time to change and grow. That's it. You don't need to, suffer long
Don't wallow in it
periods of
beyond
time
that.
because it's not productive. And I say that to my clients all the time. If that's working for you, just go home and keep feeling guilty. Or criticizing yourself regularly. You've been criticizing yourself for the same thing for 45 years. That's not working.
Yeah.
So let's try something different. So a lot of my work is just try something different to get a different result. But when we actually get it, that the present moment, Louise Hay says it beautifully, the point of power is in the present moment. All you and I can do right now is deal with right now. I don't know what's going to happen when I leave here. I'll deal with that when I get there, right? But right now, I want to be present with you, and I want to hear you, and I don't know, then I'll figure out what to do when I leave. But that brings about serenity, and the body stays calm, and that's the whole goal, is to stay healthy. I'll be 80 this next year, which is just really weird. But I get statements all the time of, what do you do, to look as healthy as you do? I said, I practice what I preach.
Yes.
And then they'll say, well, how did you finally learn to set boundaries and say, that's the other tip probably, learn to say no, people. I said, it took a while because anytime we change something, we're going to feel somewhat guilty because we're not being that person we thought we ought to be or whatever. And we're going to be a little afraid because we're not sure of the outcome. I said, but the minute you do it, you just feel better. It's that when you just know, wow. And then it gets easier and easier. And then you get a new habit. That's a healthy habit. But it's being mindful of your body, your mind, and your spirit every day.
Molly, it's been so great to have you here.
Thanks.
Those are great life lessons.
Fun.
So we're going to put on the screen how people can find you.
Okay.
We'll give them your email address, and they can find you if they'd like some life coaching in the DFW area, or if they'd like to purchase your book, they can contact you directly for Gently Down the Stream by Molly Behannon.
Yes, and I did do this as a coffee table book for a reason. I just wanted it to be simple and people pick it up and read something and go about their business just with that one tip. So thank you so much for great questions and helping me spread the message about wellness.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks.
And now our tip for the day. So it's important for all of us to try to stay well. And when we think about wellness, we often only think about our physical wellness, and it's really more pieces than that. We have our emotional wellness, our intellectual wellness, our physical wellness, and
Spiritual.
spiritual wellness. So keep all of those in balance. And that's easy to say and not easy to do, but be aware when you get one of them out of balance to put a little bit more resource towards that. And you could get life coaching to help you, counseling to help you to identify those things, just like you would go get your annual physical, to just stay on the right path and listen to your body, because it will tell you a lot. And that is the tip for the day.